All right, listeners, get ready because today we're going deep, deep into the history of Halloween.
It's a long one.
It is a long one, and I think you're going to be surprised by some of the twists and
Oh,
turns
absolutely.
that this holiday has taken over the centuries.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Ireland recently,
Oh, yeah.
and I saw these pumpkins in the windows, and I was like, wow, that is like full-on Americana right there.
That's true.
Like, that is really interesting. That
Yeah.
This holiday, which, arguably the biggest thing America exports is its culture.
That's very true.
And that is front and center.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be talking all about that today. We've got some really interesting sources to pull from. We've got articles from IU News, History.com,
Oh, wow.
MLTnews.com, the Irish Times, Headlines and Heroes, and even a really interesting academic paper
Okay.
that goes really deep into some of the origins of Halloween.
Very cool. I'm excited to see what all these different perspectives, especially from both sides of the Atlantic, have to say about this holiday.
Absolutely. So to really kick things off, let's go back,
Yeah.
like way, way back, 2,000 years ago, to the Celts.
Okay.
Now, the Celts were these people that lived in what is now Ireland and the UK and parts of France, and they celebrated their new year on November 1st.
Okay.
Now, this date was super significant for them because it marked the end of summer, the end of the harvest, and the beginning of a dark, cold winter.
Which you can imagine for them was a really uncertain time.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they were so tied to the land and their livelihood really depended on
Right.
the success of the harvest.
I mean, winter truly meant like life or death for a lot of these people.
Exactly.
So the night before the new year, October 31st, was known as Samhain,
Okay.
and it's pronounced Samhain.
Samhain.
And the Celts believed that on this night, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead would thin,
Right.
and spirits could return to Earth.
So it wasn't really about the spirits coming to like scare people or haunt them. It was more about like a connection between the physical world and the spiritual realm.
Exactly. And the Celts believed that on Samhain, they could communicate with these dead cans. They could even seek guidance from their ancestors
Wow.
and even try to get a glimpse into the future.
Which makes sense when you think about how
Gotcha.
important it would be to know what the coming winter might hold.
Absolutely. I mean, they needed to know how to prepare, how to survive
Yeah,
those long, dark months.
exactly. So it was kind of a time to face their fears, acknowledge the cycle of life and death, and find some comfort and direction.
And they had these really intense rituals for this.
They did.
The Druids, which were like their priests, they'd build these huge bonfires.
Oh, wow.
And people would gather around and throw crops and animals into the flames as sacrifices to the Celtic deities.
Can you imagine that happening today?
I mean, like a giant bonfire and just like chucking a cow into it.
It's pretty wild.
It's a little much.
Yeah, but it shows how deeply they revered and maybe even feared the natural world and the forces that controlled their lives.
Right. I mean, those were powerful forces for them, and they didn't take it lightly.
Yeah.
And they wore costumes, too.
They're costumes.
Costumes, but we're not talking, store-bought superhero capes or anything like that.
Right.
They were wearing animal heads and skins,
Oh, wow.
maybe to blend in with the spirits, maybe to ward them off.
Yeah. That's a pretty striking image.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows that human instinct to both connect with and also protect ourselves from the unknown.
For sure. And it's interesting to think about how that connection between costumes and the spirit world, it's been carried through all the way to our modern Halloween.
Absolutely.
So here's another little detail that's always kind of freaked me out about Samhain.
Okay.
After the celebrations were over, the Celts would relight their hearth fires from the sacred bonfire.
Oh, wow.
It's like they were carrying home a spark of that communal energy, a symbol of hope and protection against the coming winter.
What a beautiful image.
It is.
It's like this reminder of the human spirit's resilience, even when facing uncertainty and darkness.
But of course, things change, and a few centuries later, the Roman Empire, with its own distinct beliefs and traditions, conquered a lot of Celtic territory.
Yeah.
And that's where we see the first layers of this cultural blending that would eventually shape Halloween as we know it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the Romans brought their own flavor to the mix.
They did.
And it's really fascinating to see how those Roman traditions blended with the existing Celtic practices.
Okay, so we're talking about the Romans now.
Yeah.
So what were they doing around this time of year?
Well, the Romans had their own festivals that
Okay.
took place in late October.
Okay.
And one of those festivals was called Feralia.
Feralia.
It sounds scary.
It does sound a little spooky.
And it was a day dedicated to commemorating the dead.
So kind of similar to the whole Celtic focus on remembering.
Very similar.
And all right.
Like both cultures, despite their differences, had this shared understanding of the importance of acknowledging death and the afterlife.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And what else did the Romans bring to the party?
They also had a goddess named Pomona.
Pomona.
She was the goddess of fruit and trees.
Fruit and trees. So are we talking...
And her symbol was the apple?
Wait a minute, apples.
Yeah.
Are we talking like bobbing for apples here?
You got it.
No way.
It's believed that bobbing for apples, which we now associate with Halloween fun, might have its roots in this Roman festival honoring Pomona.
That's incredible.
For the Romans, apples symbolized abundance and harvest.
Right.
So bobbing for apples might have been a way to predict a fruitful year ahead.
That is so cool. I would have never guessed that something as simple as bobbing for apples had such a long history.
Right. It shows how ancient practices can change and evolve and take on new meanings.
Yeah, and new contexts over time.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the Celts, we've got the Romans. Now things are getting even more interesting because now Christianity is entering the picture.
Right. As Christianity spread, the Catholic Church started establishing its own holidays. And some of those holidays were strategically placed to coincide with existing pagan celebrations.
So it's almost like they were trying to rebrand those celebrations.
Many historians believe that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
So in the 8th century, Pope Gregory V designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, a day to honor all Christian saints. And then the day after November 2nd became All Souls' Day, a day to remember and pray for the dead.
So instead of trying to wipe out these pagan celebrations of the dead, they kind of created their own versions.
It was a pretty smart move.
It was.
And over time, All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day became intertwined with the older Celtic traditions of Samhain.
Right. So those traditions were just too strong to completely get rid of.
Exactly. And All Hallows' Eve, the evening before All Saints' Day, eventually became
Halloween.
What we know as Halloween.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really layered history, this tapestry woven from Celtic, Roman, and Christian traditions.
Wow. So many different influences all coming together.
That's right.
To create this one holiday. But hold on a second. We were talking about pumpkins earlier.
Right.
And those weren't part of the European tradition, were they?
No, they weren't.
Okay, so how did pumpkins become such a big deal for Halloween?
Well, to answer that question, we need to hop across the pond to colonial America.
All right, so we're going to America.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
But even in America, Halloween wasn't always a widely celebrated holiday.
Really?
Yeah, especially in early America.
Okay.
Particularly in Puritan New England.
Oh, right. The Puritans.
Halloween celebrations were pretty muted. The Puritans, with their strict beliefs, weren't too keen on anything that even hinted at paganism or superstition.
Yeah, those guys weren't really known for their love of parties and costumes.
Not really, but in other parts of colonial America, Halloween was more common. In Maryland and the southern colonies, where there were more Irish and German settlers, they had these gatherings called play parties.
Play parties. What's that all about?
They were basically community get-togethers with ghost stories, music, dancing, and harvest-themed games.
Okay, so not quite the trick-or-treating in haunted houses that we know today.
No.
But still a chance for people to get together and celebrate the season.
It was a blend of European folk traditions and emerging American customs.
Right.
And they played a really important role in shaping Halloween's social character.
Okay.
So it wasn't just about spooky fun.
Right.
It was a chance for communities to bond, for young people to mingle, and for anxieties about the coming winter to be expressed and shared.
So even in these early American forms, Halloween had this element of social cohesion.
Yeah.
A way for people to connect and support each other during a time of uncertainty. So what were some of the specific customs that emerged in these play parties?
Well, one of the interesting customs was divination games.
Divination games like fortune-telling?
Exactly.
Okay.
Young women would use all sorts of methods, from apple peels to roasting chestnuts, to try to predict their future husbands.
That's so interesting.
It was a playful way to engage with anxieties about marriage and family life.
Especially during a time when marriage was such a significant social and economic institution.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how Halloween provided this outlet for expressing these hopes and fears.
Right.
All disguised as games and playful rituals.
And as Halloween evolved in America, these playful elements continue to intertwine with the darker, more spiritual aspects of the holiday.
So who or what really shaped that evolution?
Well, a key figure in that evolution was the American writer Washington Irving.
Oh, Washington Irving, the author of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That story really captured that spooky Halloween vibe.
It did. I remember reading it in school.
Yeah, and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow was published in 1820.
Okay.
And it was one of the first American stories to really embrace those Halloween themes.
Right.
Ghosts, folklore, and that unsettling sense of the supernatural lurking just beneath the surface of everyday life.
It's amazing how literature can shape our understanding of a holiday.
It really is.
How it can take those ancient themes and give them new narratives and new characters.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that traditions aren't static. They're always evolving.
Yeah.
They're always being reinterpreted and reimagined through the lens of art literature and popular culture.
Exactly.
And in the case of Halloween, the mid-19th century brought a major shift.
Okay.
A wave of cultural influence that would completely change the course of Halloween's history in America.
I'm guessing you're talking about the Irish potato famine.
You got it.
That was such a devastating period.
It was starting in 1845.
Right.
The Irish potato famine caused widespread starvation and hardship in Ireland.
Yeah, millions of people were forced to flee their homeland.
And many of them ended up in America.
And I'm guessing they brought their Halloween traditions with them.
Exactly. The arrival of these Irish immigrants had a profound impact on Halloween in America.
So they brought all their customs with them.
They did.
Like carving turnips into lanterns.
Yes.
Playing pranks and going door to door for treats.
I love it.
So the Irish immigrants were really the ones who helped popularize those core Halloween traditions in America.
They played a huge role. Their arrival coincided with a growing interest in celebrating Halloween in America.
And I bet the Victorian era,
with
its fascination with spiritualism and the occult, that probably added fuel to the fire.
Absolutely. The Victorian era really fueled that interest in the supernatural and the macabre.
So Halloween was starting to take shape as the holiday we know and love today.
It was.
This amazing blend of ancient Celtic practices, European folklore, and emerging American customs.
That's right.
But we've still got a ways to go.
We do.
How did we get from there to the trick-or-treating, costume-wearing, pumpkin carving extravaganza?
That is the question.
No today.
And the answer lies in the 20th century, a time of rapid social and cultural change that would transform Halloween into the modern phenomenon we know today.
So stay tuned, folks. We're about to step into the 20th century and see how Halloween went from a fringe celebration to a global sensation.
Can't wait. So we left off with Halloween taking root in America.
Right, and those Irish immigrants really brought some key traditions with them.
They did. Those Irish immigrants, they really left their mark on Halloween.
So, like, how did those carved turnips evolve into the pumpkins we see everywhere today?
Well, pumpkins are actually native to North America.
Oh, so they weren't even available?
Right, they weren't in Europe.
In Europe back then.
Exactly. So when those Irish immigrants got to America and they saw these big round pumpkins, they were like,
perfect.
Way better than those turnips.
All right, much easier to carve, too.
Yeah, way easier.
So that's a great example of, like, cultural adaptation. It really is.
Taking an existing tradition and making it work with what you've got.
Absolutely.
And what about trick-or-treating?
Okay, so trick-or-treating.
How did that turn into this huge candy-fueled event?
Well, remember we talked about souling?
Yeah, going door to door praying for the dead.
Exactly, offering prayers for soul cakes.
Right, soul cakes.
And that tradition, it kind of morphed over time and blended with those Irish customs of guising and pranking.
So basically, praying for souls turned into kids in costumes demanding candy.
Pretty much.
That's quite a journey for a tradition to take.
It really reflects how Halloween changed in the 20th century.
Okay.
It became a lot more community-focused, less about ghosts and the supernatural, and more about kids just having fun.
And I think the rise of mass production
absolutely
played a big role in that too.
Huge role.
Suddenly costumes and decorations were affordable and accessible.
Exactly, and everyone could participate.
Right, and then you have the post-World War II baby boom. A whole generation of trick-or-treaters.
Exactly. And that really solidified Halloween's connection.
Yeah.
With childhood and community.
For sure. And parents were really encouraged to make it a safe and fun experience.
Yeah. I remember that poem from the MLT News article.
Oh, yeah.
About keeping Halloween safe and fun for kids.
Help keep Halloween a happy day.
Yeah. For all the little folks at play.
It really captures that spirit.
It does.
Of wanting Halloween to be a joyous community event.
But let's be real. Halloween isn't just about
cute
little ghosts and princesses anymore.
No, it's not.
There's this whole darker, spookier side.
Oh, yeah.
That's become super popular.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about all the horror movies.
Oh, yeah.
That have become Halloween staples.
Totally.
Like Halloween, Friday the 13th.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's not Halloween without them.
They're practically traditions themselves at this point.
Right.
But why do you think those movies are so popular around Halloween?
Well, I think they tap into this deeper fascination we have with the macabre and the unknown.
Like our fears.
Exactly. Our fears and anxieties about death and what we don't understand.
It's like Halloween gives us this safe space to confront those fears.
Right.
In a controlled, almost playful way.
Totally. It's like we can explore the things that scare us without actually being in danger.
And that's what's so fascinating about Halloween.
Absolutely.
It's this blend of lighthearted fun and spooky thrills.
Yeah, it's both playful and profound.
Commercialized, but also deeply personal.
It really is a unique holiday.
It's a reminder that traditions are always evolving.
Always adapting.
But they still hold on to those core elements that make them meaningful.
Exactly.
And ultimately, it's up to each of us to decide how we want to celebrate.
Oh, and it's a playful side, spooky side, or a little bit of both.
Exactly.
All right, so we've gone from ancient Celtic rituals to Irish immigrants bringing their traditions to America.
And now we're in the 20th century.
The 20th century, a period of massive change for Halloween.
It's amazing to think that Halloween went from those small gatherings and play parties to becoming the second biggest commercial holiday.
I know, right behind Christmas.
In the U.S.
It really shows how adaptable and appealing this holiday is.
It does. And a lot of those changes, they go back to those Irish traditions we were talking about, like those carved turnips.
Yeah, what about them?
They turned into pumpkins, right?
They did.
So when did that happen?
Well, pumpkins, they're actually native to North America.
Right.
So they weren't even a thing in Europe.
So when the Irish immigrants came to America,
exactly.
They saw these pumpkins and were like,
perfect.
Way better than those turnips.
Right. Much easier to carve.
Much easier.
And that's like cultural adaptation at its finest.
It is taking a tradition and making it work with what you've got.
Absolutely.
Now, what about trick-or-treating?
Oh, yeah, trick-or-treating.
How did that turn into this massive candy-fueled event, right? Because it wasn't always like that.
Yeah, it wasn't always like that.
So how did it evolve?
Well, remember souling?
Yeah, praying for the dead.
Offering prayers for soul cakes.
Yeah.
That tradition, it morphed over time. It blended with those Irish customs of guising and pranking.
So basically, praying for souls became kids in costumes demanding candy.
That's a pretty wild evolution.
That is a long way from where it started.
It really shows how Halloween changed in the 20th century.
How so?
Well, it became a lot more community-focused, less about ghosts and the supernatural, and more about kids just having fun.
And I think mass production played a role in that, too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, suddenly costumes and decorations were affordable.
Right, and everyone could participate.
Exactly. And then you had the baby boom after World War II.
Right, a whole generation of trick-or-treaters.
So Halloween really became associated with childhood and community.
Yeah, and parents were encouraged to make it a safe and fun experience for their kids.
Remember that poem from the MLT News article?
Oh, yeah.
About keeping Halloween safe for kids.
Help keep Halloween a happy day.
Yeah, for all the little folks at play.
That's the one.
It really captures that spirit.
Yeah, it does.
Of wanting Halloween to be a joyous community event. But of course, Halloween's not just about cute little ghosts and princesses anymore.
Definitely not.
There's this whole darker, spookier side that's super popular.
The horror movies.
Exactly like Halloween, Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah, classics.
They're practically Halloween traditions in themselves at this point.
They are.
But why do you think those movies are so popular around Halloween?
I think they tap into that fascination we have with the macabre and the unknown.
Our fears about death.
Exactly what we don't understand.
It's like Halloween gives us this safe space to confront those fears.
In a controlled way.
Right. in a playful way.
Almost like we can explore those fears
Yeah.
without actually being in danger.
And that's what makes Halloween so unique.
It really is.
It's got that mix of lighthearted fun and spooky thrills.
Playful and profound.
It's commercialized, but also deeply personal.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that traditions are always evolving.
Adapting.
They change over time, but they still hold on to those core elements that make them meaningful.
Exactly. And it's really up to each of us to decide how we want to celebrate Halloween.
Whether it's the playful side, the spooky side, or a little bit of both.
Exactly.
So there you have it, folks. The history of Halloween.
From ancient rituals to modern-day celebrations.
It's a story of cultural exchange adaptation and that enduring human fascination with the unknown.
So as you celebrate this Halloween, think about all the layers of history and tradition that have shaped this holiday.
From those Celtic bonfires to those American pumpkins sitting on windowsills all over the world.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween.